Welcome to the Want to Tempo Us podcast. I'm David Tainer. For nearly 3 decades, I've coached football and worked relentlessly to develop our greatest resource, people. This podcast is built around the lessons I've learned from players, coaches, parents, mentors, teammates, and competitors who have shaped my life. Every episode follows the same formula: story, then lesson, then application. Let's get to today's podcast. Want to Tempo Us.
The Want to Tempo Us podcast, episode 1, the origins of the Want to Tempo Us podcast. One of my first memories that I had that really stands out to me was as I was a 5-year-old. I was sitting in front of the fireplace at my house growing up, and I was playing a football game or playing football with my G.I. Joes and my Masters of the Universe action figures. And as I was playing with them, I said, well, 6 touchdowns, that's 42 points. And my mom overheard me, and she goes, what'd you say? I go, 6 touchdowns is 42 points. She said, well, what's 3 touchdowns and a field goal? And I immediately responded without thinking, 24 points. Essentially, I had taught myself math before I ever entered kindergarten, not because of the love of math, but because I love the game of football. Football ultimately was my first language. In a lot of ways, it still is. So, as I just said, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Grew up on the west side of Columbus. I went to Briggs High School. Was a multi-sport athlete from the time I was 6 years old. Played football, baseball, basketball. Even moonlighted a little bit and did some swimming for a little while. Ultimately, from high school, I earned a scholarship in both football and baseball to Urbana University, and that's where I attended college. And at that point in time, I thought I had life figured out. I was going to be a math teacher because I was pretty good at math. I was going to be a football coach at high school. It was a simple plan, but it was a great plan. Then, as I'll say, Mike Tyson happened. Everybody has a great plan until they get punched in the mouth. Urbana is where life initially punched me in the mouth, and I had to learn and grow from it. Those first 2 years of college was the first time in my life I faced any real true life adversity. Prior to college, if you ask me about adversity, it was we just didn't have a whole lot of money. I grew up without a whole lot, but the reality was life had been pretty easy for me. And then I got to college, and within the first 3 weeks of being in college, my dad had a heart attack, had open heart surgery. About 2-3 weeks after that, I get a knock on the door from Coach Ron Hudson. I was my offensive line coach, and he said, hey, Dave, come with me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm going to drive you back to Columbus. I go, why do I want to go back to Columbus? He just get in the car. So as he was driving me back, he explained to me that my mother just had a stroke and that my mom was, he wasn't sure on everything, but know that she was in intensive care and that she had been clinically dead for a period of time, but they'd revived her and she was in intensive care and he was taking me back. That left my mom impaired both physically and mentally for the rest of her life. Over the next year and a half, I had a sister, Tammy, who passed away of a heroin overdose. With 3 grandparents. 3 grandparents passed, the only 3 that were alive at that point in time. And one of my best friends took his own life. So every time there was a phone call or there was something or some contact from home, it was some type of crisis that was going on, some type of major adversity. But ultimately, this story is not about the adversity. The story is about the people who had an impact on me and never let me be a prisoner of those circumstances. So as all that was going on, whenever I needed a kick in the ass, somebody was there. That somebody, a lot of times, Rich Newsom, who was a teammate next to me, lined up next to me, ended up being the best man at my wedding. But if I needed somebody to kind of kick me in the butt and, hey, let's go get to the weight room, get in the weight room by whatever means necessary, even if that meant taking one of our smaller teammates and shoving them through a window so we could break into the weight room, he made sure that I got there. If I needed a ride home, Coach Hudson would take me home. If I needed a shoulder to lean on, my girlfriend at that time, Heather Rose, or now my wife, Heather Tainer, was there for me to lean on. There were teammates, there were faculty, there were mentors, there were people at Urbana University. And people ultimately change people. Leadership is what really matters from those people. And those people may not realize it, but they were the leaders that I needed at that point in time in my life. Those relationships matter. The culture matters. The people, at the end of the day, And the bottom line is Stone Cold says, the people at Urbana University refused to let me be a prisoner of those circumstances. So at the end of the 2 years, I made a decision. No longer was I going to be a math teacher. That wasn't what I was headed to do. I wanted to be a college football coach because I realized as a college coach the impact you could have on people's life. And it was my responsibility and my charge to pay forward the impact that this game and the coaches that I had and the teammates that I had paid forward to me. So the journey started. Ultimately, I got done with playing at Urbana University, helped there in the spring of the year, and then I went to the University of Louisville and was able to get to the University of Louisville as a football strength and conditioning GA, in large part because the relationships that I had at Westside Barbell. I trained at Westside Barbell, was able to do that from a young age, mostly because my brother is a world championship powerlifter, Chuck Vogelpol, who Louis allowed me to get into the gym, and then I had to earn my stripes while I was there and get strong. Anybody that goes in through Westside's doors, you got to get strong. But every week at Westside, there was always another group of strength coaches that came through. So one of those strength coach group was, and they were actually at the University of Texas at that point in time, was Rock Gullickson and Evan Marcus had come through the building. Were using some of the ideas that were born in Westside Barbell. So they had a graduate assistant job at that point in time at the University of Louisville. So I was able to go there initially and get an opportunity to see what an elite program looked like, and we won a conference championship while I was there. Was able to see that, and then that led to my first opportunity full-time at Culver Stockton College. And it's funny how relationships get you in life where you're going to be. Sometimes you don't even realize those relationships. So I got the job at Culver Stockton College as a offensive line coach and eventual offensive coordinator because of Brad Berlin, Double B, who was our equipment manager, who happened to have a relationship at that point in time with Chris Tabor, who took the head coaching job. So I was at Culver Stockton for a period of time as an offensive coordinator. Then I went to Wisconsin Stevens Point and met John Mish, who was the head coach there. And as we build this podcast out, there will be some references to Coach Mish because he was really, in my mind, one of my most important mentors. He was the godfather of Wisconsin Stevens Point, the Angry Dogs up there, the Pointers. So many leadership lessons and things learned there. I was fortunate enough to be able to hire him as an assistant coach at one point as well and have him on my staff. Nothing's better than having one of your mentors on staff so that you can lean upon. From Stevens Point, went to Tiffin University, and you find out in football, production matters. We went 19-3 during those 2 years, won a couple of conference championships in 2006, 2007, led to me being able to go home and be the head coach at Urbana University. At Urbana University, Urbana had never been very successful. My senior year was 5 wins, which was the most wins in school history at that point in time. But we were able to establish a culture, build a program at a university that was going through a lot of financial struggles. But we won a couple conference championships in 2010-11 because of the culture that we were able to build there and the leadership lessons that were learned at that point in time. Now, the university, as I mentioned, was having some financial struggles. I probably would have loved to have stayed at Urbana University for my entire career, but it seems like every time I go to Urbana, something in life punches you in the mouth. I went there initially as a player, and those real life adversities hit me. I went there in 2008 as the head coach, and our first year we went 1-10, and we had to really double down on focusing on building culture. And then we win a couple conference championships, have really the 5 best seasons in Urbana University history. The university goes bankrupt, ends up being sold to Franklin University, and from there, it wasn't the same university to me. And then I went on and took on another rebuilding project at Lock Haven University, and it was really at Lock Haven University that my perspectives on things changed a little bit. Up until that point in time, and even while I was there, my number one job was developing football players and developing them into leaders. Eventually, I realized that it wasn't just for football players, it needed to be for family, for people in general, for leadership, truly being a mentor, realizing the last part of a rock. I have a rock that I keep on my desk, and I keep around myself that says husband, father, and mentor. And I realized from the time at Lock Haven University that the real challenge was to focus on developing people and developing leaders. I also, from that rock, realized that was I investing at that point in time into things that mattered most? And that wasn't true. I mean, it was a reality check, a realization. Throughout my entire career, something that I've done in the off seasons is something called Real Life Wednesdays. So we train in the weight room on Monday and Tuesday. We train in the weight room and conditioning on Thursday and Friday. Wednesday is the off day of training, but we focus in on leadership training on that day. And we'll do something we call Real Life Wednesdays, and we install our platform for success of those individual and team characteristics that we want to build and develop within our culture. One of the things at those meetings that I would focus on is I felt like the number one thing I could do as a coach was help build great future fathers. And we put an emphasis on it. And one of those things that we did when we emphasized it was, how do we define family? Family was defined in three different ways. There was a child or kid definition of family, which would be family is the people who takes care of us. They provide for us. And then we'd say there's a sibling definition, and these are the people who have our back and we have their back. We have each other's six. So it's a brotherly definition. And then there was a fatherly definition, and this is the people we sacrifice for and invest in without concern about what we get back. So we're paying that forward to them. So I was teaching that as leadership for multiple years, but really during the 2019 season, at Lock Haven University, I'd spent a majority of my time between recruiting, fundraising. The focus was not on being a great father. And my daughter, Chloe, at that time was 7 years old. She was involved in a multitude of activities: dance, gymnastics, t-ball, softball, horseback riding, guitar, whatever YMCA sport was being offered at that point in time. I was active. I mean, I would get to the majority of things, but I wasn't invested. So for me, when I took that personal reflection time during 2019, as my tenure at Lock Haven University was closing and COVID was beginning, I realized there was a ton of opportunity for me to become a better dad. I missed too many moments. I prioritized some of the wrong things, and it was a pure realization. So once that happened, we made a decision we were going to move back to Ohio. I was actually going to start a leadership training and development business, and I actually procured the first client, which was Germain Toyota, and was doing that for them almost full time at that point in time. Was going to do it, and we were going to move back. Then COVID hit, and there was a lot of time when things weren't active, and we were still in Pennsylvania, hadn't quite moved. And during the day, me and Chloe would go on what we'd call walk and talks, which in our neighborhood there was a circular road that went around, and we'd walk around that and we'd talk about a ton of different things. It seemed like mostly it was about her trying to convince us to buy a dog. So in fact, at one point in time, she made a science fair board, put it into all the reasons why we should buy a dog, and ultimately convinced us. So while some people have some COVID kids that happened during that time, COVID babies, we have an overpriced dog, Max, who's now 6, for us, who's become part of the family. But the fact that we were able to spend that time walking around and spending the time, things slowed down. I realized that I wanted to truly invest in being a better father. So the people closest to me deserved a better version of me, not the leftovers that came from football. Now, I've not left football coaching. I don't think that, and it's still the language that I speak. It was my first language, and it is definitely a language that I speak. So once we got back to Ohio, I ended up coaching at Graham High School. I was head coach there for a couple of years, then at Sydney High School for a couple of years, and now I'm back into college coaching. Coach Bill Nickel, who was part of that original Urbana University team that we had that went 1-10 and ultimately ended up with a couple conference championships. He's the head coach at Defiance, and I've made a commitment to go up there and help him build a championship program there. In large part because we don't have the Urbana University no longer exists, even though the people are here. We're UU for life. You know, he doesn't have the opportunity to go back to his alma mater and be the head football coach. So he's invested in Defiance College, and I'm there to support him as he goes. So why does this podcast exist? Okay, and what is it? It's the Want to Tempo Us podcast. It's not really a football podcast, but football will be a part of it. It will always be a part of it. It's not a parenting podcast, right? But we will talk about raising competitors. I mean, it's something that I think all of us as parents are probably highly invested in. How do we help our kids grow and develop? It's not truly a leadership podcast, but leadership will be a part of it. Only this is a podcast about developing people. In life, you are the people you surround yourself with. They build and develop you, and you pay that forward to them. We share this line whenever somebody maybe gets into a little bit of issue that they shouldn't be into, or one of their friends does it. We'll say, your friend, your fault. Right? We all own and we are part of the greatest team game that's ever invented. So the core themes of the podcast is simple. It's the culture that I've developed and built some championship programs out of, and I think it's what develops people. It's Want to, Tempo, and Us. So what is Want to, Tempo, Us? And Caleb Sexton, if you end up watching this podcast, it's not 1, 2, Tempo, Us. Caleb played for us at Urbana University, and he'd been with us for over a year. And we break down each meeting at the end of a team meeting. We break it down and say, out of here on a good, ready, break. Ready, break. And the team that is standing up goes, Want to, Tempo, Us, and they clap. And that breaks the meeting. Well, he'd been there for a little over a year, and we broke it down. He came up to me after me. He goes, I just realized it was Want to, Tempo, Us. I've been thinking it was 1, 2, Us. I go, you got to be kidding me. So what is Want to, Tempo, Us? Well, Want to. It's passion. Nothing great on this earth has ever happened without having passionate, driven people behind it. Passionate people are relentless, lifelong learners. They're constantly looking for ways to better and develop themselves. Right? So what is tempo? Tempo is the work that goes behind that want to. Right? So it's in one more than you approach. You have one opportunity at each day. Attack that with great tempo. Win the day. Have a sense of urgency for what you do. Win the day. Then tomorrow when you wake up, you look at yourself in the mirror, and that's the number one accountability partner that you have on this earth. That is yourself. Now it's time to go and get one more. The only thing to fear in our development and in people's development is complacency. It's sitting still. We want to seek challenge every single day. Don't seek comfort, seek challenge. What is a way to better yourself? Let's go and attack that day. The third part is us. Football, life, and sports are great team games. They're the ultimate team games. We have strengths and weaknesses. Each of us do. We want to take our strengths and use them to better our teammates, to better the people that are around us. To steal a line from Jocko Willink podcast, which is probably the original podcast that got me started thinking I might want to run one. When I trained and ran a marathon back in 2020, you'd listen to his podcasts for over 2 hours long. They were great for those long mile trainings. But he said, cover and move. That's the idea. That's the concept of what us is, and that's training your strength and using your strengths to better your teammates. But we also have weaknesses, and those weaknesses are something that we have to diligently train and improve in ourselves so our teammates don't get exposed by them. A game plan in football, as an offensive coordinator and offensive coach forever, what do I do with a game plan? I want to figure out our opponent's weaknesses, use our strengths to attack those weaknesses and expose them. So as a teammate and as a person, you want to figure out your weaknesses, train those areas so that the people around you are not exposed by your weaknesses. So that's what Want to Tempo Us is. And this podcast is dedicated towards the idea of developing people. The more experience that I get, the more convinced I become of one thing. The most important thing we ever build isn't a program, it isn't a team, it isn't a business, it's people. So for the coaches who changed me, the teammates who have supported me, the wife who believed in me, the daughter who gave me perspective, the players who have entrusted me to coach them, the mentors who've challenged me to be my best. Every meaningful thing in my life has came through you as people. And if this podcast accomplishes anything, I hope it can help develop a few more elite people. Welcome to the Want to Tempo Us podcast. Now let's get to work.
Thank you for being a part of the Want to Tempo Us community. If today's episode brought you value, subscribe so you don't miss future messages. If you know a coach, parent, player, teammate, leader, or competitor who would benefit from this message, share it with them. For additional resources, leadership content, and upcoming projects, visit wanttotempous.com. And if there's a question, challenge, or topic you'd like us to discuss in a future episode, we'd love to hear from you. Remember, the game of life is played every day. Focus on what you can influence. Compete relentlessly. Raise the standard. Develop people. Until next time, Want to Tempo Us.